You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Hey, you know what? Let me hit that.
Really?
I can handle it.
I am certain that you cannot.
Oh, come on. I smoked a ton of weed in the 90s.
Right, the 90s.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Imagine a remote island, untouched and untainted by the wonders of modern technology. This island's inhabitants, contented with their peaceful solitude, witness the sudden appearance of giant metallic birds. Worse, these skyward beasts begin to descend in unison. Upon landing, their bodies shift and distort, birthing bountiful gifts and strange men. While this may sound far-fetched on the surface to the isolated tribes of the South Pacific during World War II, this was their reality. A paradigm shift that would quickly transform a culture of solitude into a domain for worship, the cargo cult. During the Second World War, Allied forces established makeshift bases on several Pacific islands, bringing with them heavy cargo planes,
Wow, it would really help if I had audio going into the show. Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. All this talking was for naught, huh? God damn it. God damn it. I really hate me sometimes. I said like the most dope, beautiful words. I really just delivered the most captivating speech that the English language has ever known, and nobody but me heard it just now. That was so fucked up. But anyway, like I was saying, I noticed something the other night, caught my attention. This there was some events that took place in New Zealand's parliament. I believe they have a parliament in New Zealand. You see these fine brown people here on your right? They are in the parliament of New Zealand. They are of Maori descent. The Maori being a tribe native to New Zealand, at least native in their telling of the story. We'll get back to that in a moment. But apparently these two people, and frankly, most of the room, burst out into a protest haka. They were protesting some legislation that was coming forward in New Zealand, and they decided to show their displeasure by performing a Maori tribal ritual dance. The haka, as I understand it, is originally something of a war dance. It may have been used for other purposes over the years, but as I understand it, it is a war dance. And seeing as how I wasted all my beautiful intro because my audio wasn't synced up properly, I don't know why. I guess because I reset my computer the other day, but I just don't want to repeat myself. So the intro I just gave you guys while I was on mute is just going to have to go to waste. We're going to get back to the cargo cult clip now. Now you understand why we're watching the cargo cult. Because here's one thing I will say. A lot of black people of a Pan-African ideology, they are of the belief that the entire world was black up until the white man came with his technology, right? Now, I don't believe such things, but I have noticed something interesting in that the people of the world who still exist in what we would call a primitive Stone Age existence, most of them seem to be black. Now, maybe not most. Let's say half. Let's say half. And why do I say half? Because you have South America, and there's like a handful of uncontacted tribes in South America right now. And then you have like the blacks of the South Pacific, the Aboriginals. Phenotypically, they look something like your typical Black American. Not exactly, but there is a similar look. There is a resemblance. And it's not lost upon me that most of the Stone Age people still left in this world are black. Let's get back to this clip, shall we?
Of unfathomable treasure. Thus, the islanders found themselves thrust headfirst into the booming 20th century. The soldiers got to work on clearing runways and erecting flight towers. These monuments and strange clearings appearing as ritualistic prerequisites to the curious islanders, listening to headphones, speaking into radios, and marking out landing pads.
Sigma Jones in the chat says, the more I see politicians, the more I can understand why Darwin believed we evolved from monkeys. Darwin was a high-level Mason. Did you know that?
The bizarre behaviors of heaven-sent intruders. In the wake of the soldiers' post-war departure, the islanders took it upon themselves to crack the code of cargo nirvana. Through trial and error, mimicry, and forgery, they'd summon back their once magnificent skybirds, and in doing so, return their much-beloved cargo.
Now, understand the concept of the cargo cult. The white man of the 40s lands on these relatively untouched, these previously untouched islands in the middle of World War II. So to the average cargo culture, this is the equivalent of not only meeting aliens for the first time, it's like meeting aliens in the middle of Star Wars.
Runways were soon cleared, headphones carved from soft wood, and rickety towers erected from the ground up, all in an admirable attempt to lure back the precious cargo birds. It happened once, so it was bound to happen again. The core belief behind the creation of
Yes, Free Zone. I told SKC tonight's show would be it would smell like culture. I didn't say which culture exactly. I wanted to leave that open. But I promised him some culture, and God damn it, I'm going to give him some culture tonight.
These cargo cults was that great ancestors or honored spiritual beings were behind the sending of these goods. Yet, in fits of greed, the Western soldiers had chosen to intercept and thus hoard a cargo intended for the lonely islanders. Thus, in performing their feigned rituals, the cargo cults hoped to...
Did you catch that? The cargo cultures have their own version of technology. You see, the gods had promised us all of these wonderful gifts. And somehow these crafty white people and their metal flying birds, they stole our gifts that the gods had intended from us. Cargo cult technology.
Yet, in fits of greed, the Western soldiers had chosen to intercept and thus hoard a cargo intended for the lonely islanders. Thus, in performing their feigned rituals, the cargo cults hoped to receive goods directly, as was the initial intention of their gods. One of the most famous leaders of the cargo cults was John Frum. While his origins are shrouded in mystery and his existence debated to this day, Frum is said to have appeared in the late 1930s, a figure strongly associated with the arrival of cargo. And
You know the interesting thing about this John Frum? Now, I've learned a little bit more about this guy. I picked a really short video to use in tonight's show for, obvious reasons. But there's a lot longer versions of several cargo cult stories. And John Frum, long story short, they went on to worship this white man as a god. The white man is their God. To this day, they say he shall return to us, like Jesus in the last book of the Bible.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
The glorious return of 20th century prosperity. Even today, every year on February the 15th, islanders celebrate John Frum Day, hoping for his swift return. Anthropologists have found fascination in the cargo cults for decades, and for good reason. They pose fascinating questions about how secluded cultures understand and interpret new and often inexplicable events. But more so, they offer deep insight into the human need to make sense of the unknown, tightly weaving it into familiar cultural and spiritual narratives. Over time, as modernization has crept into these remote islands, the fervor of cargo cults has waned significantly, yet they remain a striking reminder of a unique cultural response to sudden and overwhelming change, a change we may one day face ourselves. Metallic birds, divine beings, precious goods, and John Frum America. The South Pacific's cargo cults have etched an indelible mark on the annals of history, reminding us of the profound ways in which cultures can intersect and, for better or for worse, shape one another.
Cargo cults. Very fascinating story in human existence. Now, why are we talking about cargo cults? Because although New Zealand wouldn't be properly classified as a cargo cult, they exist much like the cargo cults existed during the war, meaning this. Civilization, modernity was brought into that part of the world after Australia was discovered. There's a whole history to, how Australia was discovered by the white man. I think Captain Cook. And then eventually the Europeans went on to populate this island with their own people. And then it becomes a proper nation over time. Now, this is obviously some video from Africans fucking around with the white man's technology. But this was basically the state of the world. The state of New Zealand, even before the white man. Now, I want to share something. Let's skip up Let's skip ahead to modern times. Let me show you guys exactly what all the hubbub is about. Why are we talking about New Zealand today? Why are we picking on these foreign niggas? I will show you.
The House is suspended until the ringing of the bells. The gallery is to be cleared.
You know, sometimes I understand the white man's burdens and frustrations. Was all that really necessary? I mean, is it even appropriate to maintain your little goofy war dance after my people have graciously decided to not genocide you? You realize when Captain Cook first made it to their little South Pacific backwater, that's exactly how they greeted Captain Cook. Yeah. And he shot a couple of them in the face. Matter of fact, he kept shooting them in the face until they stopped dancing. And they've been like sad and shit ever since then. It's fucking crazy. Apparently shooting people in the face actually solves problems. Who knew?
Identity politics doesn't accept equal votes. Race mongers don't accept that. So a minor Maori party in that parliament closed that parliament with a haka, a Maori war dance, with Labor MPs joining in this attack on democracy.
All right, listen, you guys in the chat talking about how cute she is. I just want you to know that's her orgasm face too, okay? Every time she climaxes, this is what you're going to hear. And then she's going to get up and do a little angry stomp naked across the room and shit. And then she's going to grab a spear and stab you in the stomach because she's a cannibal.
Who screamed out that haka, claiming that this is the only way she knows how to behave, being, Maori.
This is all that I know, is to be Maori.
I mean, what nonsense, spare me. The ACT leader, David Seymour, who himself has Maori ancestry, called out this tribal thuggery for exactly what it was.
What I didn't hear in the debate today is a logical reason to oppose the principles in this bill. That is the real challenge for the people on the other side. I think lacking good arguments, they are behaving like that.
Joining me is the panel. There's James McPherson from the Late Debate here on Sky News, and Evelyn Ray, farmer, former policewoman and Sky News regular. I mean, James, that's all she knows is this politician doing a war dance rather than accept a vote. And I think this is where race politics ultimately ends, right? Your response?
Yeah, well, Andrew, this is what happens, sadly, when you allow a 22-year-old into Parliament. She's more suited to being an influencer on TikTok than a representative in a democratic Parliament. At best, you would call that a temper tantrum wearing a cloak of culture to disguise it. But in reality, it's a reminder of what's at stake. When you...
Yeah, you know what? It is a reminder of what's at stake because she's grandstanding on her culture. I am Maori. In fact, I think Character Matters has it right. She's Maori. She's about it, all right? She will cook a nigga and eat him in front of everybody.
You tear up the principle of equality, which she literally did. We saw on the video there that she took the bill that's under discussion and she tore it in half. When you do that, you end up with rank tribalism. And so we saw there a war dance which is designed to intimidate. Now, if intimidation doesn't work, what have you got left? You've got violence. And that's what the Brits lifted the Maoris out of, intertribal violence, to a society where we are all equal before the law and we all have a say and we work out our differences by talking and debating principles rather than resorting to what we saw in the Parliament. It was a disgrace. And I tell you, there are a lot of Maori people, many of whom I know, who saw that and said they were shocked and embarrassed by it. She does not represent Maoris in New Zealand who, frankly, were horrified at what they saw, many of them.
I just wonder when they want to declare a race war, do they realise that they're actually outnumbered? I mean, God forbid, if it came to that, they're actually desperately outnumbered. What are they asking for? And Evelyn...
God damn. So is Australia one of the few places where the white guy's like, you know what, we got this race war thing? Because, you know, Canada, America, Europe, the numbers are changing drastically, but Australia is like, all right, you fuckers can point that little stick at me if you want. Remember how this happened last time when we first got here? You pointed your sticks at us and then we shoved them up your asses.
Willem, can you imagine the uproar if white politicians screamed at, got in the face of other politicians in Parliament in an intimidating way, got in the face of Aboriginal or Maori politicians?
Look, Andrew, I can imagine it, actually. I think all of us can. Let's not forget what recently happened to Pauline Hanson. And that wasn't even to an Indigenous Australian, and she wasn't even yelling. So I think that paints a pretty accurate picture of what we could expect if something like this was reciprocated and flipped on its head. But, you know, sadly, we have to live in a country now where we're afraid to speak because of fear of social consequences and now legal ones. And we have to live with the fact that we've kind of invited this into our country, into every aspect and sphere of, you know, how we live our lives. You know, if we do not change this about our country and about Western countries around the world, our children and our grandchildren are going to look back on this in their history studies in school, and they're going to be writing essays about how we single-handedly destroyed the country because we were afraid to be called a slur, a racist or a white supremacist or whatever else they want to slap us with. And I think the only way that we're going to get out of this hole that we've put ourselves in is by saying enough is enough. You know, we need really strong politicians who, quite frankly, don't mind wearing these, you know, tired labels that they continue to slap on us, who's, you know, out of line of the narrative. And we also need a public who can really think for themselves and see through all of these smear campaigns. And, you know, Andrew, the sad part is if we can't do these two very simple things, we are going to lose democracy. We are going to lose equality under the law. And in the end, our children and our grandchildren will lose because of that.
When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. That, Mr. Speaker, is what is behind this bill. Its architect tells us that this is about equality, but we do not have equality in.
Yeah, the Maori are brown, so therefore they are woke. I had no idea the tribes of all around the world, all the brown tribes are just going woke.
In this country. Pick almost any statistic that you like. Housing, incarceration, health, life expectancy. Māori get unfair and unequal outcomes because of unfair and unequal treatment, which started with the Crown's intentional, violent actions to dishonour Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Capitalism. That is an economic system with the key priority to turn profit at almost any cost, needs colonization. This insatiable, unsustainable economic system.
Now, she's complaining about colonization, and she says specifically capitalism needs colonization. I would counter that New Zealand needs colonization. The Maori people need to be colonized harder. Didn't stick the first time. They're still doing that haka bullshit.
Needs to assimilate and acquire new frontiers to exploit. It needs to turn every citizen into a consumer and to commodify our natural world. And right now, in this country, the biggest thing standing in its way is the resilience and the fire and the enduring movement for mana motuhake. Mr. Speaker, when Te Tiriti was signed, Māori outnumbered Pākehā 40-1. Can you imagine a small group of people coming to this country, signing an agreement to look after themselves in orderly cohabitation, then instead taking our land and our language?
Now, this lady who's representing the Maori interest is complaining about a group of people coming to her land and stealing, just taking our land, taking our shit. I want to talk to you guys about the Maori. I want to play some videos for you guys. Let's learn more about these Maori people. They talk big shit.
Maori history, life before Europeans, is today, by and large, being portrayed like a book and the movie, Watership Down, romantic engagement by the people of the land with nature, the cosmos, even idyllic, carefree lives that were completely snuffed out when the white blokes and big, large ships began arriving.
Now, I want to talk to you guys about something called the noble savage. Are you guys familiar with the idea of the noble savage theory? It basically goes how this guy speaking just said it. You know, the brown and black tribes of the world existed in the state of peaceful equilibrium in nature with relatively little violence, theft, brutality, lying. You know, they were without sin until the evil white man showed up and taught them such things, right? Was Noble Savage a dope MC? I don't know. That is a great 80s rapper name though. But there is this idea of the noble savage, right? And I think the most recent and frankly one of the biggest, most widely known examples of the noble savage, believe it or not, think about it, it's all going to make sense once I point it out to you. The movie Avatar. Go back and tell me that the Na'vi were not the noblest savages in all of cinema history. They were so noble, I don't even think they shit or pissed. They were beyond bodily function. And who was the bad guy in that movie? It was not just a white man, but the white man. He was the military. And so it painted this picture of these extra woke people, they were physically in touch with their god, their goddess, by the way. It was a mother goddess, wink, wink. And this people who were essentially a representation of that divine equilibrium living in nature, the commie utopia, basically. When the communists talk about their vision of utopia, it's more like Avatar than it is some kind of steampunk fantasy where everybody has money and food. It's not going to be Star Wars. Star Wars is just damn near impossible. The logistics of Star Wars are retarded. It'll be more like Avatar. That's the commie utopia. And then the mean white man military came to ruin the communist utopia. And SKC, stop reading ahead, all right? I know, because I used to be the smart kid in class who got bored and then read faster than the teacher was teaching. Stop skipping ahead. We will get to that chapter in a minute, God damn it. Fucking smart kids, I swear, man.
Evil colonialists bent on stamping out customs like eating your fellow man, enslaving them, and killing your baby because it wasn't a male. Modern Maori history is the equivalent of reading a redacted document. Large swathes are blanked out rectangles. On the shelves of my central library are dozens of large tomes, meticulously cataloguing iwi or tribal history, lineages. Hardly a paragraph is spared, though, about the time a great-great-great-grandfather partook in eating his neighbours, or ended up as the main course himself, nor the...
Have you guys ever wondered what your neighbors taste like? I mean, I'm not saying I have, because all my neighbors are fat and ugly, but still.
The little matter of your great-great-great-aunt being snuffed out aged 2 days. Moreover, the little bits we think we know is the case regarding cannibalism are now systematically being rewritten and watered down. I'm about to bring some sobering clarity to this practice because there are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of first-hand testimonies from horrified witnesses about what went on. Everybody knows, of course, cannibalism went on. Broadly, though, only on a macro perspective, in general, not the specifics, the messy micro bit. Let's start with the number one widespread present-day belief people have on this touchy subject.
Sigma Jones in the chat asks, why do most of these indigenous people like human flesh? As I understand it, it comes down to two parallel thoughts of reason here. One is practical. There's just, when you exist at that level, acquiring protein is a difficult thing. And you'll probably less likely to eat your own people, perhaps, but other people are still meat. And then two, there's a sort of mystical element to it. You're consuming the soul of your enemy. You're literally taking their strength or whatnot. And so there's two different lines to it. There's actual consumption for the benefits of it, the calories and whatnot. And then there's the religious element, the ritual element to it. And I'm not sure which is worse, because, dead and eaten is still dead and eaten, but that is kind of how it goes.
That's Maori cannibalism only occurred after battle. eating the vanquished, and in the ultimate degradation, excreting them. Whilst true, this did happen, cannibalism wasn't just a ritualistic byproduct of conflicts alone. Consuming slaves was by far number one. Some of those were prisoners, but they may have been in servitude for years.
They ate their slaves. You know, in America, we talk a lot about, you know, the white man's treatment of his slaves. You know, he was a mean master. He made me work from sun up till sundown. I ain't getting no breaks. We didn't have no union. And all that might have been true. The white man might have been a terrible master. He might have been a mean, awful son of a bitch. But the white man would not eat his slaves. It's just not how they get. That's just not the slavery the white man engages in. He doesn't do dinner slavery. He does industrial slavery. It's a whole different kind of slavery. The white man just don't eat you.
You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Before being dispatched, an estimated 10% of people living in New Zealand in 1825 were, after all, slaves. These Untermenschen were killed and eaten regularly. A celebration for a newly constructed meeting house and war canoes would be rounded off with a feast of slave flesh.
Now, it's a weird thing to conceptualize in the modern world, right? But I want the white folk of Australia in particular to understand the symbolism that's threatening them right now. That dance, that haka, that's the dance they do when they've decided to eat you. First, they have to kill you. So that's, you know, they're getting all amped up to kill you. That's what that's all of that. That's them getting amped up for war or whatever. Because, you know, your physical state matters. It helps when you're in a physical state of excitement and your aggression has been ginned up to max levels, right? But after they get done killing you, they will have worked up an appetite. And so they're going to eat you. White people. I hear the white meat is juicy and tender. That's what I hear. I don't know, but that's what I hear.
And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white.
You could get killed and cooked for slighting someone's mana. That's pride for overseas listeners. Not showing respect. Straying onto the wrong path. Augustus Earle, who you will hear.
Yo, and they say niggas in America is petty, bro. Hold up. There's this whole scene in fucking Do the Right Thing where the white guy stepped on his fucking Pumas. Was it a Puma or were they Nikes? I think they were some Nikes. He probably got like some Jordans or something. Like that was an exhibit of the pettiness of niggas. And he technically wasn't even a nigga. He was like some Dominican or something, but he still represented niggas.
That's right. Best pitch in the game.
Look how petty this was.
Quite good. I knew you were gonna bring that up, man. You know who's better. You know who's better. Roger Clemens is better. Clemens sucks, man. He can't carry White Jock. Man, how can you say Clemens in the game? Who won consecutive fight? Best in the game. What's up, Boogie? Got you. What's happening? You the man. No, you the man. No, you the man. You the man.
This is it. This right here. This scene in Do the Right Thing, it was to show the highlight. It was to highlight, rather, the weird, petty bravado of the inner city black urban male, right? And it was some petty. Let's not even try to defend it. This is some petty. Now, and to be fair, the white guy was an asshole. Like, that was a dick move. People have been beaten up and worse for shit like that. Because niggas is petty.
Yo!
Yeah, he scuffed the J's, bro. You can't scuff a nigga J's, bro. And they was fresh too. He just got him out the box. He got his little Afrocentric shoestrings in him and shit. The red, green, and yellow. What's that, Jamaica or something? Damn, bro. He scuffed the J's.
Yo! Yo! Yeah? He almost knocked me down, man. What is it? Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That almost knocked me down. He's talking about brand new white Air Jordans I just bought. That's what you say. Excuse me? Are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. I fucked you up 2 times. 2 times. Who told you to take my sneakers? Who told you to walk outside the block? Who told you to be in my neighborhood? I own this brownstone.
See, look. Here we go. Another white man stumbling into the Browns territory, not understanding the tribal customs, not understanding how petty people can be, not understanding that you might actually get eaten for disrespecting somebody.
House and Wakanews would be rounded off with a feast of slave flesh. You could get killed and cooked for slighting someone's mana. That's pride for overseas listeners, not showing respect.
Now, niggas is definitely petty. Spike Lee was not wrong for putting that in the movie. Niggas is definitely petty, but niggas have never been known or accused of eating a nigga because you disrespected me. You might get beat up, you might get shot, you might get stabbed, you might get pushed in front of a car. But I've never heard of a nigga being killed, cooked, and eaten because he got disrespected.
Straying onto the wrong path. Augustus Earle, who you will hear from more later on, was mortified to learn the corpse that was being eaten in front of him, the bones of which the dogs were fighting over, were that of a boy he'd been friendly with. His crime, forgetting to tender the village garden. That's yet another watered-down modern rewrite, being it was only fighting-age men who were cooked up. Rubbish, para, that's the merry word for rubbish.
Apparently the children have a tender meat. Like veal. It's way more tender than regular beef because it's a baby.
The only meat on the menu wasn't just adult men, women and children too. Children's flesh was particularly savoured. White men's, less so. No one was spared. The only exemption was a relative.
Hold up. Did they say the white meat was less favored? Holy shit, I did not expect that.
Particularly savoured. White men's, less so. Wasn't just adult men, women and children too. Children's flesh was particularly savoured. White men's, less so.
Okay, what about white women? There probably weren't that many white women around at the time. But they had an order to this shit. They were like, all right, the children taste the best. Women come in second. And then white men taste like ass. That's some bullshit. We don't eat that shit. That's crazy. White guys, how does it feel to not be on the menu? Like, they would eat you, but only if they were really, really hungry and there was nobody else laying around.
No one was spared. The only exemption was a relative. After giving this podcast a listen, I'm fairly sure you'll agree with my assessment that it's an extremely long bow to...
Yeah, I'm with you, Acadia. The Aborigines probably did love Chinese, but the problem with Chinese is if you eat one, you got to eat another one like 20 minutes later, and it's not really worth it.
Draw, highly selective, to suggest whānau or family violence only became prevalent after Europeans arrived, when killing and eating children went on. For the record, more often than not, it was the men who did the noshing. As you will hear shortly, often it was an arbitrary practice, little more than senseless brutality. One report I read was an inter-village dispute over an ownership of a dog that ended up in an aggrieved party and the family getting dispatched and eaten. Another.
Hold up. So you guys had a fucking family feud over a dog. And instead of just cooking the dog and splitting the dog evenly among the two families, They just say, you know what? We'll keep the dog and eat the other family. Because that's more meat for us. Oh, fuck. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I can't believe these are real stories.
These blacks.
Oh, God. That's wild as fuck. That is wild. And then look, these images on the screen with fucking severed heads. Apparently, severed heads were a form of currency. You could buy like bread, or you can probably buy some bitches with a bag of severed heads. I don't know what was for sale. It was like a wild place. I'm sure a lot of things were on the market. Shit you can't buy in regular civilization.
And what is probably best termed massacre was predicated on the sky being red, indicating it was time to wreak death upon the neighbouring tribe. Eat them, all of them, excepting the childbearing age women and toddlers.
Oh, wow. So the sky turned red for whatever reason, because every now and then something weird happens in the sky. But, you know, Primitive's early man, he doesn't know. Apparently, when the sky turns red, that's God saying that you have to eat the other people. It's good to know. Good to know. Make sure I keep my gun on me in case the sky ever turns red. And I don't trust none of you people.
A sure way to rid yourself of a curse back then was to kill and eat the perpetrator. Getting life insurance in New Zealand 2 centuries ago wasn't an easy thing. This custom of eat thy neighbour took a good 7 decades to finally be extinguished. Thanks.
See, eat thy neighbor was a custom. Now, I know people hear me say this and they snicker and they roll their eyes and they come up with a list of uh-uhs and what about this? But let me tell you this. When I say that, it's not so much the white man per se, but when I tell you that Christianity as an idea, as a concept, spread by the white man, but Christianity actually tells you to love thy neighbor, where for the majority of the history of the world, eat thy neighbor wasn't all that frowned upon. It sounds fucked up, right? Like eat thy neighbor. Yes. Apparently there were whole little pockets of the world where not only did they eat their neighbors occasionally, they would eat the motherfuckers if they got out of line. Like, you know, that nigga borrowed my shovel and he ain't give it back yet. And he looks delicious. You know, apparently that's the way shit went down back in the world. Shout out to D-Rock Den with the $5 Cash App. He said the leftists, they're going to laugh at you. Hey, man. You ever threaten a motherfucker with cannibalism? That's how Mike Tyson used to do back in the day before he was doing fake fights with Jake Paul. Mike Tyson would be like, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to devour your liver and shit. Shout out to D-Rock Den, man, with the fireball. Trying to work as many cannibalism jokes in this show as I can tonight.
I need that money.
Chiefly to Christian missionaries. Not that you'll hear many people today applaud their efforts on this front. What you're about to hear are warts and all reports from the time. As best I can, I will give you broad details of the writer, date and location, etc. So you can look for a book yourself in the library. In the same section, you are bound to find a range of other books or of a similar vein, other recommendations. You can place them in the comment section of YouTube. I'm hardly being selective here. This podcast would run for hours if I read them all out. Writers back then weren't bound by modern constructs like political correctness or cultural relativity. What they saw is what you get. Before I kick off, more listenable. Into it, excerpt 1, William Yate, a missionary who, along with William Williams, was one of the first people to put the Maori language into writing.
And shout out to all the missionaries back in the day. They were some of the original communitile anthropologists. Yes, it's true. It's true. I mean, think about it. Who else really spent as much time shoulder to shoulder with the brown primitive tribes as your Catholic missionaries attempting to convert the masses? They were out there. They were in these streets. Back then, it wasn't streets. It was just like trails in the jungle and shit. But they was in them jungle trails preaching the word and writing down all the crazy shit these niggas was doing. The missionaries saw it first, and they wrote about it first because somebody had to hear about this shit. People will not believe it. If I don't write this down, people aren't going to believe me when I tell them this guy ate a baby as a celebration for a wedding.
His book, set here in 1831-32, is called An Account from New Zealand. What Yeats didn't include in the book was he was a raving pufter, got caught touching up the natives, and booted out of the country and the Church of England.
A missionary pedophile? No. You see why I love history? You see why I love history? This is why we're not talking about politics or anything American tonight. We're just doing history shit. Apparently, some of the missionaries were pedophiles too. Hey, don't be surprised. The world's dark and ugly. Always has been. Always will be.
New Zealand. What Yeats didn't include in the book was he was a raving pufter, got caught touching up the natives, and...
A raving pufter. Fucking elegant, refined British slang. A raving pufter.
Booted out of the country and the Church of England.
You know how fucking... I don't know if you got like steel, you got balls of steel, or you're really just that depraved. Yo, imagine going around cannibals trying to be a pedophile, bro. Oh my God. Like niggas got a death wish, bro. That is the wildest bucket list. I want to go to the cannibal islands and try to groom a baby. Yo, people are fucking insane. Imagine that, like, of all places to try to go a proper waker. This guy had, oh man, this nigga had life goals, bro. He had life goals. Like, he didn't want to just be any old regular diddler. That nigga want to diddle where no man has ever diddled before, bro. He might not survive this diddling.
Cruelty and the desire to inflict pain mark all the proceedings of the New Zealand battle. The blood of the victim is slowly drained from the most sensitive parts of the body and not too unfrequently quaffed to slake the thirst or to gratify the revenge of the conqueror. The almost unified conclusion to these bloody scenes is the lamenting over the dead bodies of their friends and cutting off heads of their enemies.
You know, I'm sorry. I just thought about something. This is so weird. This is the weird quirk of human nature. They kicked him off the island because he was gay, right? Think about this for a minute. This is insane, but this is fucking real. Listen. Think about how their culture works for a second. Think about how the culture works. Fucking insane. So, if you disrespect me, I might eat you. If you go to war, I might eat you. If I catch my wife looking at you, I might eat you. All right. If the kid doesn't do all of his chores, we might eat the kid, right? But we don't fuck with that gay shit. All right. You need to get the fuck out of here with that gay shit. I don't know where the fuck you're from with all that. Oh my god, it's weird when people. Everybody has a line. Everybody has a fucking line apparently, and for most people that's the line. That is the line. It's weird, but that's the line. That's wild as fuck to just like rationally contemplate that like that moment. It's like, hey, listen. I know we're cannibals, but we ain't with all that weird shit. All right.
And preparing the bodies for a feast, as with very few exceptions, they eat the bodies of the chiefs whom they have slain.
Yeah, bro, they totally didn't eat the gang out. It was like, nah, that's bad meat. That meat is tainted. That meat has some meat in it. No. they refused to eat the gang out, bro. They knew. That is wild. I don't even know what to make of it. I just know it's funny as hell that even cannibals were like, listen, man, we not with that weird shit. I don't know where the fuck you come from. That's not natural. That is not natural, all right? God don't love that.
I cannot ever think that from any desire that this generality of them having to satisfy their own appetite for human flesh, but from a diabolical spirit of revenge. Our second author is Edward Tregear, and his book is called The Maori Race. Tregear was sympathetic towards the plight of Maori. Indeed, for that matter, any downtrodden person in society. He wanted to bring the end of the English class system and capitalism as a whole. He lived amongst Maori and suggested Maori were part of a mythical Aryan race. Here we go.
The prisoners are taken in the fight, and they were slain in cold blood, except for those reserved for slavery, a mark of a still greater contempt than being actually killed for food. Sometimes after the battle, a few of the defeated were thrust alive into large food baskets, and thus further degraded forever. As a general rule, however, they were slain for the oven in days near.
Bro, you thought American high school was rough because you got pushed into a locker? Imagine being pushed into a food basket and you just gotta stay there. Like, oh well, I guess I'm food now. I hope they kill me quickly. I don't want to taint the meat. Bruh. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. Bruh.
It is recorded that the chief Te Whero ordered 250 prisoners of the Taranaki people to be brought to him for slaughter. He sat on the ground, and as the prisoners were brought one by one to receive a blow from the chief's merry club, after he had killed 250, he said, I am tired, let the rest live, and the remainder passed into slavery.
Imagine only living because the chief pimp hand got tired. You think he caught something like pitcher's elbow or whatever that shit's called? Like he was just swinging his cannibal axe so hard for so long on so many people. Nigga elbow just started to give out. And he was like, fuck it. You know what? I would have killed the rest of y'all, but god damn it, my shit's sore now. And I ain't even gonna feel like doing this tomorrow. I know it's gonna be sore tomorrow too. So you know what? Y'all got this. Y'all got this. Go clean something up. Go grow some potatoes or some shit. I'm gonna be hungry. Bro. Yeah, he needed that Tommy John. Imagine being saved from dinner because the chief he had a Tommy John flare up. It's like, damn, we was gonna eat you, but you know, my elbow's sore now.
This next passage is taken from The Pioneering Days of the Southern Maryland by M.A. Rugby Pratt. That's right, Rugby Pratt, a Methodist Bible banger and campaigner against the demon drink. As a new day glimmered on the dying and the dead, amid the scene of desolation, preparations were made to cook the bodies of the slain. What flesh could not be consumed was packed in or about 100 baskets and taken to Kapiti, that the horrible feast might be continued there. On the way to Kapiti.
Yeah, Acadia, there is another tribe that was demolished by the Maori. I think the pronunciation is the Maoriari. It's a slightly different group. They're probably like related, obviously, but apparently there was a tribe living on the island of New Zealand before the Maori actually arrived there. And the Maori, over time, they killed and pretty much ate the entire tribe. And now the Maori are here looking at the white man talking about you be oppressing me and shit. Bro, you ate the people that got here before you. And you had the nerve to tell me that this is your indigenous land. You literally ate the guys that got here first. And now you like, what other people? Licking your fingers and shit, trying to wipe your hands off. Talking about what other people? I ain't see no other people. Hey, Grug, did you see other people? Me no see no people. Yeah, Grug ain't see nobody. I didn't see no other people. What other people? We've been here this whole time. And then the white man just came and oppressed us. No. The stories that you're hearing right now are probably how the last few of that other tribe got dealt with. We ain't gonna say no names, but we know you ate some of these people.
The captive chief and his wife strangled their little daughter, lest she should become a slave, a wife of one of their treacherous captors. Most of the prisoners of the war were slain, and a few were enslaved. Around the neck of the chief was hung the head of his son, whose body had been consumed before his eyes. He himself was taken from the pa to Pa, and made the object of derision by his captors, and was afterwards killed with a spear thrust by a widow of one of the warriors, who with fiendish satisfaction drank his warm blood as it gushed from the wound. The bodies of the chief and his wife were afterwards eaten, the eyes of the fallen chief being...
Damn, they're vampires and cannibals. Because you got to wash it down with something, right? It's not like they had beer and shit. The white man, he didn't bring beer to the island yet.
Swallowed whole.
God, can you imagine if they had alcohol too? Oh, fuck. They would have had all kind of dishes. Gin infused baby fingers and shit. Oh, man, they would have been savage even more. They would have been drunken savages.
To prevent them, as the native feared, becoming fixed in the starry firmament. Onwards, respected today by modern-day scholars for his cataloguing of Maori customs, a massive chronicler of life in New Zealand in the early to mid-1800s, writing 6 full volumes. White even ran a newspaper published every week in Te Reo.
The party who took the pa stayed in it, and keeping all the women they could, and killed all the men. The children under 3 years, they cut their heads and arms off and cooked the trunk, taking the insides and then beating them into a pulp, which they said was the best type of food to eat, with ferns. The women, they ran sharp sticks through their feet to prevent them escaping. A man had intercourse with one of them, and then after that, he killed...
Bro, damn, that's a pimp hand. That pimp hand wicked right there. You ran sharp sticks through their feet so they can't leave. Like, bitch, where you going? Oh, all right, just checking. Make sure you still got your spikes in. Can't have my bitch running off into the jungle. Nigga might eat you. Can't have another nigga eating you. I was thinking about that. In a nice way, though. In a nice way. Not like them. Those guys are perverts.
More from John White, a rather interesting chap, actually. He wrote the first book on Maori poetry, and being a bit of a music nut.
Bro, they absolutely did fuck their food. Yo, can you just imagine what it's like to be in a place where the men fuck a bitch, then kill her and eat her? Bro, just think about that whole process for a minute. Like, damn, that ass fat and it looked delicious. Like, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to take all night with this bitch, and then half the night is just the meal. Oh, my God. Oh, fuck, bro. Wow, what a world we live in, bro. What a world. Can you imagine? This is why we're doing the show tonight, Acadia. I think you just got here, but this is literally why we're doing the show, because the haka went viral. And I'm like, that's a war dance. And then I started looking closer, and I'm like, oh, that's a hungry cannibal war dance. That makes it even better. Yeah. But don't worry. They only like to eat women and children. They don't like to eat white men. White men, niggas be salty and shit.
He liked to put Maori songs to English or European tunes, and he also wrote a book on Maori mythology.
As I sat intently watching the people of our camp, my slave came up to me and said, "Some of our people have caught a man, and they're preparing him for the oven." I ran off to see who it was. On the way, I was speaking to a red-haired girl who'd been caught out in the open.
A redhead girl? A red-headed girl, you say? I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a secret alternative history. Legend has it that tribes of white people were actually among the first people to inhabit those South Pacific islands. Legend has it, some of the people of New Zealand, and even, what's those islands with the big heads on them? Help me out, chat here. What's the island with the big heads on them? No, they're not fucking Atlanteans. God damn it. Easter Island. Thank you. So, according to secret white man history, there were some early seafaring tribes. I think the story goes they left from the ancient Persian region at some point. Aryan Persian white man. And so they left that Persian region way deep back in dark ancient history, and they like escaped war or something. And then eventually a bunch of these people wound up in different South Pacific islands. And then later on, other tribes wound up there, and apparently they ate the white people.
Or European tunes, and he also wrote a book on Maori mythology.
As I sat intently watching the people of our camp, my slave came up to me and said, "Some of our people have caught a man, and they're preparing him for the oven." I ran off to see who it was. On the way, I was speaking to a red-haired girl who'd been caught out in the open. We were then just on the eastern side of Mount Eden. This girl had been caught at the stream. My companions remained with the girl while I went down to see the other men from the Waikato who had been killed. When I arrived, they were preparing the flesh. The bones were to be put to other purposes. One of the men engaged on the bones was working on a kneecap. I asked, "What are you doing?" I was told, "The kneecap is for a pipe." The man was killed in revenge.
Yo, imagine just strolling through the village and you see a dude sitting on the floor just gnawing on a fresh kneecap, and you stupidly ask him what he's doing, and he doesn't say nothing. I'm just sitting here having lunch. He doesn't say I'm eating this kneecap. He says I'm making a pipe. I am making a pipe.
Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population.
and his leg bones will be now made into flutes. As we came back, I saw
pipes and flutes, nigga. Pipes and flutes. Holy shit, bro. They making wind instruments out of niggas, bro. Fucking this. God. Now, do you guys remember when I explained to you the burden of empire? Let me refresh your memory. Actually, you know what? I need to pour a drink. I need to pour a drink for this because these niggas is amazing. Lucky me, I already had a drink ready for this. I had a drink ready to go just for this moment. Smoke me every day. Yo, these niggas is wild. Bruh. All right. So, the burden of empire. Here goes. The state of civilization. Well, first of all, what we call civilization. The idea that mankind can exist in towns and cities and have literature and social systems of order. We can have governments and militaries and religious groups. We can have rituals and customs that maintain us indefinitely through time. That is actually and also safe trade amongst strangers, right? The idea that a complete stranger can walk up to a person who's selling whatever and offer that person money or something of equivalent value, and they do business. This is actually a rarity in the human existence, right? Civilization is not the norm of the human existence. Savagery and barbarity is the norm of the human existence. Therefore, if you happen to find yourself a part of a civilization, an actual powerful, thriving culture, it is in the culture's best interest to expand the borders of civilization and defend those borders as much as possible. Why do I say that? Because there are people in this world, the majority of the people in this world who exist outside of the borders of civilization have no qualms about not only killing and doing awful sexual things to your body, but they will carve up your knee pipes and your leg bones they will carve your kneecaps and your leg bones into flutes and pipes. So in short, that is the burden of empire, because civilization is actually a special rarity. And if you don't defend and expand it, you will eventually be swallowed up by the world of cannibals that exist outside of your borders.
The head of the redhead girl lying in the ferns by the side of the track, and further on we overtook one of the men, and he was carrying a backload of her flesh, which was taken to our camp to cook for food. The arms of the girl were around his neck, whilst the body was on his back.
We go to this penning by the captain of the vessel, HMS Dromedary, Richard A. Cruz. It comes from his book from 1823 entitled Journal of 10 Months in New Zealand. A female slave belonging to one of the chiefs, whom he had ill-treated, was said in bitterness of her heart to have cursed him, a crime in that race that they never forgive. And when she was standing on the beach, opposite to the European houses, he walked up to her, and with a blow of his club, his Mary, laid her dead at his feet. There was a pool of fresh water close to the house of Mr. King.
Hey, my bad, y'all. Shout out to everybody donating to the show tonight. I did not have my announcements or whatever, my alert on. So shout out to Acadia in the chat with the $5 Cash App. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I appreciate you guys being here tonight.
I need that money.
I know I haven't been keeping up my normal level of content lately. You know, I got a black job. Decisions had to be made. But I'm keeping the show alive because, you know, I love this shit and I love my audience. And then shout out to GD also with the $10 Cash App, man. Thank y'all so much for supporting the show. Smash that like button, man. Smash that Cash App button for me, y'all.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry! You not like Hulk angry! Hulk no like fighting girls.
Missionary, to which the body was immediately carried. The entrails were taken out. It was divided into 3 quarters and washed perfectly clean. The chief then threw it into a canoe and with some of his tribe crossed over to the neighbouring island to devour it. This horrible act was perpetrated in the presence of some missionaries. Daniel Sheridan was an entrepreneurial trader who had traipsed between both sides of the fence. He had the trust of both the English and Maori.
The principal part of the prisoners that day were cripples, women, and children, the remainder making their escape as well as the weak state would allow. A party of the enemy were employed in dispatching as many would be sufficient for the evening's meal, their slaves getting the ovens ready, and the remainder went in search of more prey, which they found to a great number of 1,200. On the 23rd, they commenced the slaughter of the prisoners that were taken alive. They were crammed into huts, well guarded, and the principal chief executioner, with a sharp tomahawk in hand, was there ready to receive them. They were called out one by one. Those that had tattooed heads had their heads cut off and put on a block, the body quartered and hung upon.
See, this is why you're not supposed to get face tattoos. Somebody's going to look at you and be like, I want to keep that. And you know, I was thinking too, you see how this guy in the picture at the top of the top right corner, the guy with the face tats and his tongue out, I realize now what the tongue out is about. That is a threat. I will eat you. When they put their tongue out at you, that's them threatening, like, yeah, we eat people.
Fences that were erected for the purpose. Those with indifferent heads received one blow and were then dragged to the hole to bleed. The young children and grown-up lads were cut down the belly and roasted on sticks before the fires.
This one comes from a global traveller, Joel Samuel Pollock, with one L, a Jewish trader, who once again walked the fine line between Maori and European, encouraged Maori to be more entrepreneurial, break away from the finite resource that was trading in shrunken heads, get into other products like carving, which of course he would sell, major, and I mean really major.
The Midwest request says, there's no general barbecue in all third world nations. The threat is low, but never zero. The threat is low because colonization and civilization. That's, you know, we're back to the burden of empire again. That's why the threat is low. Once upon a time, back before colonization really started happening, this is how it was. This was before colonization. The threat was ever present. You never knew when a guy just might dislike you and want to throw you in a cook pot.
Claim to fame, Pollock started New Zealand's first beer brewery, arguably pushes his credibility way above those of the missionaries. His books on life in New Zealand were very well read. This snippet, likely 1833 or 1834, is an anecdotal one. It comes from a fellow trader, Ansgar.
Ansgar had not been long seated when an interesting slave girl appeared, apparently about 15 years of age and remarkably handsome. Her approach was no sooner discovered than an old, decrepit chief woman hobbled forth from her hut, made us the subject of the most virulent language towards the girl, who had appeared to have absented her without leave for 2 days. The old crone had vented forth her tirade, which she was unable to continue to total exhaustion, when she turned to a ferocious fellow next door who was standing by her and desired him to kill the girl immediately. The ruffian did not wait for repetition of the request, but ran to a boat, and seizing one of their tomahawks, which he had brought for barter, he struck the miserable girl a blow in the forehead with the implement that cut her head in two. The body was then decollated and opened, and the entrails washed and placed in a basket.
What does decollated mean? Is that when you like pull the skin off, or like is that when you like pull out the bones? What does decollated mean? I'm almost afraid to Google that shit. Probably going to be pictures.
Ending these circumstances was horrible and disgusting of a scene. The head was thrown to the children as a plaything, and then the little miscreants rolled it to and fro like a ball, thrusting small sticks up its nose and the mouth and ears, and later scooped out the eyes. The remnants in several pieces were then put into baskets and taken to the river to be cleaned from the filth they had received by being mangled on the ground. The ovens were heated, some vegetables scraped.
Yo, imagine you at the cannibal cookout and everybody just eating the regular cannibal meals, and you got that one uppity nigga like, nah, I prefer my people boneless, thank you. Can I have this boneless? Can I get this decollated, please? Oh, fucking hell. This is why you have to forgive colonization. This is why we have to get over all that historical bullshit. Because the Native Americans were, they weren't opposed to eating people either. I'm telling you, this is just how it was in most of the world. Up until, Christianity came around.
The whole thing was cooked in an hour. A large party partook of the body. Ansgar was in a state of instant agony during these proceedings and felt fearful for his own life. Some of the body was presented to him in a small basket, and he was derided for refusing to eat it.
Last up, a paragraph from Augustus Earle. That name may not be familiar to you. The oil and watercolour paintings he did of early New Zealand will be. His talents were in such demand, Earle ended up accompanying Charles Darwin on the Beagle, not because he was a particularly great artist, more his ability to whip up 3 paintings to the normal painter's one. The captain he mentions in this...
Jay Powell in the chat says, if a food resource can't be found, cannibalism is the last step. That's an unfortunate, acceptable reality, right? There was an airplane that crashed in, I believe, the Andes Mountains back in maybe like the late 80s, early 90s. Because I was a kid. I remember this from when I was a kid. There was an airplane that crashed. And what are they, soccer players or something like that? So a bunch of people survive an airplane that crashes in the mountains, and they're way up in the mountains. And it's not like, you're in the Rockies where it's America and we got all this shit around. They're in the Andes, and it's back in like back at 30, 40 years ago. And they're just up there surviving. And, they don't have much food. They probably did whatever they could from the airplane wreckage, but eventually they run out of food. And one by one, they have to eat each other until they finally get rescued. I don't know if they eat. I think they eat at least one guy, but that's kind of the situation, though. Like, somebody had to live. Yeah, the movie was called Alive, right? But that was the thing. And so in a really weird, extreme, desperate situation like that, you could understand, you could forgive those people. It's fucked up, and I don't want to be your friend or nothing, but like I forgive you. I get it. It's terrible. You know, you had to live, right? But it's a whole other thing to be like, I don't like that family over there. Let's eat them. You know, some people just love ribs, man. I love ribs too, but I like, you know, pig ribs. I don't like people ribs. Does that make me weird?
Is Richard Duke, and he is the captain of the vessel. It's a whaling vessel, the Sisters. On the spot of the rising ground, just outside the village, we saw a man preparing a native oven, which is done in the following simple manner. A hole is made in the ground, and hot stones are put within it, and is all covered up close. As we approached, we saw evident signs of the murder which had been perpetrated, and bloody mats were strewn around, and a boy was standing by them, actually laughing. Put his finger to his head and then pointed towards the bush. I approached the bush, and there I discovered a human head. My feelings of horror may be imagined as I recognised the features of the unfortunate girl. I had even seen her in the village the preceding evening. We ran towards the fire, and there stood a man, occupied in a way few would wish to see. He was preparing the four quarters of a human body for a feast. The large bones having been taken out, they were thrown aside, and the flesh compressed. He was in the act of forcing it into the oven. While we stood transfixed by this terrible sight, a large dog, which lay before the fire, rose up, seized the bloody head, and walked away with it into the bushes, no doubt to hide it for another meal. The man completed his task with the utmost of perfect composure, telling us rather disappointingly it would take some time for the body to be ready. Pew, and that's it. I was tempted to say had a guts full, but it's probably not the best choice of words. And as this isn't enough blood and gore for one day, your morbid curiosity pert. A couple of years ago, I did a video.
Yeah. That was the world back before colonization. I want to share something else with you. This is another channel I found. This stuff I listen to when I'm like driving and shit. Voices of the Past. You know, like I said, we're doing history stuff tonight. And I am a little bit of a history nerd. So we're going to do this history thing right here. And Voices of the Past is a channel that finds letters and diary entries, basically firsthand accounts of different historical events back in the deep past, and they read the letters and whatnot aloud. And so these are the four most epic accounts from history of first contact between cultures, from Vikings to Maori. Easter
The
Island.
African galley, which was sailing ahead of us, lay to wait for us, making the signal of land in sight. And so when we came up with her, we asked what they had seen. On this, we were answered that they had all very distinctly seen a low and flattish island lying away to starboard, about 5.5 miles off, to the northwards and westwards. The necessary information was given to the captain, who was astern, and to the land the name of Pash Island, because it was discovered by us on Easter Day. There was great rejoicing among the people, and everyone hoped that this low land might prove to be a foretoken of the coastline of the unknown southern continent.
You know, this is Easter Island here. This is what I was talking about earlier, the island with all the statues, the big heads. And if you notice, this island doesn't have any trees, which is odd. Most large land masses that have, you know, greenery and such have trees, but Easter Island doesn't have any trees. And there's a terrible story as to what happened to Easter Island before all these white guys showed up.
as we had seen smoke ascending in several places from which it might be reasonably concluded that the aforementioned island, although it may be shown to be sandy and barren, has nevertheless human inhabitants. Now, therefore, the President moved that it would be culpable to proceed in a careless and negligent manner, and that we should stand off for tonight with our ships, and that on the arrival of daylight we send close into the land 2 well-manned shallops, and show all friendliness towards the inhabitants, endeavouring to see and inquire what they wear, or make use of either as ornaments for other purposes, and whether any refreshments in the way of green stuff, fruit, or beasts can be procured by barter. The weather was very variable, with thunder, sheet lightning, and showers. During the forenoon, Captain Bowman brought an Easter Islander on board, together with his craft, in which he had come off close to the ship from the land. He was quite nude, without the slightest covering for that which modesty shrinks from revealing.
And the cannibals were naked, too. People just walk around with no clothes. Like, what's the point of clothes?
This hapless creature seemed to be very glad to behold us, and showed the greatest wonder at the build of our ship. He took special notice of the tautness of our spars, the stoutness of our rigging and running gear, the sails, the guns, which he felt all over with minute attention, and with everything else that he saw, especially when the image of his own features was displayed before him in a mirror, seeing the which he started suddenly back, and then looked towards the back of the glass, apparently in the expectation of discovering there to be the cause of the apparition. In the morning, we proceeded with 3 boats and 2 shallops.
I think back in the day, once upon a time, you could like buy a whole slave for a little pocket mirror. It was like magical or something.
Manned by 134 persons, all armed with musket, pistols, and cutlass. After thus disposing our forces, we marched forward a little, to make room for some of the people who were behind, that they might fall in with the ranks. Quite unexpectedly, and to our great astonishment, 4 or 5 shots were heard in our rear, together with a vigorous shout of, it's time, fire!" On this, as in a moment, more than 30 shots were fired, and the Indians, being thereby amazed and scared, took to flight, leaving 10 or 12 dead, besides the wounded. After
first contact with the South Pacific, and you got to body a couple of them. As soon as you show up, war.
For a little while, the assistant pilot of the ship came up to me, saying that he, with 6 other men, was the hindmost of the party. That one of the natives, laying hold of the muzzle of his piece to snatch it from him, he struck a blow, and further, that another Indian had attempted to strip the jacket off one of the seamen, and that some of the natives, seeing our men resist, picked up stones, using threatening gestures, as if to pelt us with them. After the astonishment and terror of the natives was somewhat allayed, on their seeing that our hostilities were not persisted in, they were given to know by signs that the victims had threatened to make an assault on us by stone throwing. What the form of worship of these people comprises, we want.
Can you imagine what it was like back in those days to like get on a boat? First of all, the ocean by itself is fucking terrifying. You have no idea what's beneath the ocean. We didn't have like Animal Planet and the Discovery Channel back then, so the average person can know something about sea life and shit. Everything was a mystery to you. And then you're sailing. Not only are you on the ocean, you're like 2 years sailing away from home. And you wind up on this little brown fucking island with these naked niggas who are just angry. These niggas are naked and angry for no fucking reason. All you want is food and water and shit. You got these naked, angry brown motherfuckers fucking with you. And then you make it out, you make peace with the little angry brown niggas, and you start walking around and you see this shit. What the fuck is this shit right here? You little naked motherfucker. I know you little naked angry niggas didn't do this. There's no way you did this. What the fuck is this? Who are these people?
were not able to gather any full knowledge of, owing to the shortness of our stay among them. We noticed only that they kindle fire in front of certain remarkably tall stone figures they set up, and thereafter, squatting on their...
Hey, something else most people don't know. Apparently, those aren't just heads. Those are damn near full bodies that are just buried up to the neck.
Their heels with heads bowed down, they bring the palms of their hands together and alternately raise and lower them. At first, these stone figures caused us to be filled with wonder, for we could not understand how it was possible that people who were destitute of heavy or thick timber, and also of stout cordage, out of which to construct gear, had been able to erect them. Nevertheless, some of these statues were a good 30 feet in height.
30 feet in height. That's a full body. There's another thing too. You know, history has been watered down over the years. Stuff you watch on TV isn't mostly true. So according to the people who drew this picture back in the day, they weren't just heads that were buried. 30 feet sounds like a statue of a giant. But anyway, never mind.
And broad in proportion. This perplexity ceased, however, with the discovery, on removing a piece of the stone, that they were formed out of clay or some other kind of rich earth, and that small, smooth flints had been stuck over afterwards, which have fitted very closely and neatly to each other so as to make up the semblance of a human figure. Moreover, one saw reaching downwards from the shoulders a slight elevation or prominence which represented the arms, for all the statues seemed to convey the idea that they were hung about with a long robe from the neck right down to the soles of the feet. They have on the head a basket heaped up with flints, painted white, deposited in it.
The hats used to be white, huh?
The country, to which I have given the name the Arctic Highlands, is situated in the northeast corner of Baffin's Bay, and towards... The warriors and old men of our tribe sat in silence and gazed at these goblins. Now, some of the goblins had walking sticks, which they carried about with them.
These are the Maori again, the cannibals with the face tats.
And when we arrived at the bare dead trees, where the shags roost at night and have their nests, the goblins lifted the walking sticks up and pointed them at the birds, and in a short time thunder was heard to crash and a flash of lightning was seen. And a shag fell from the trees, and we children were terrified and fled and rushed into the forest and left the goblins all alone. They laughed and waved their hands to us, and in a short time the bravest of us went back to where the goblins were, and handled the bird, and saw that it was dead. But what had killed it? Our old people waited in suspicion.
So apparently this is a telling of a Maori child from the Maori perspective. They thought the white people were goblins. The cannibals thought the white people were goblins. Interesting.
And went back to the settlement, as also did the goblins. We were now at quiet and peace with them, and they gave us some of the food they had brought on shore with them. After the ship had been lying at anchor some time, some of our warriors went on board and saw many things there. When they came on shore, they gave our people an account of what they had seen. This made many of us desirous to go and see the home of the goblins. When we got on board the ship, we were welcomed by the goblins, whom our warriors answered in our language. We sat on the deck of the ship, where we were looked at by the goblins, who, with their hands, stroked our mats and the hair of the heads of us children. At the same time, they made much gabbling noise in talking. They held up some garments and showed them to us, touching ours at the same time. So we gave them our mats for their mats, to which some of our warriors said ka pai, which words were repeated by some of the goblins, at which we laughed, and were joined in the laugh by the goblins.
The past is really an alien planet. I don't think modern people really can conceive of what it was like. Yeah, that's when hair touching was born. White folk been touching brown and black people's hair for a millennia now. That's part of what the discovery was. I just want to know what y'all niggas' hair feel like. There's people over there. Let me go touch their hair. And spices too. Don't forget spices, bro. Don't forget spices. Apparently goblins love spices, bro. Goblins love the spice. I feel like when we watched when I watched the movie Fight Club, there's this like epic speech that Brad Pitt gives. We don't really live in an age of adventure. We don't have a great war. Our great struggle is like internal or something. And I kind of understand. I get that. There's a part of me that like longs for the age of adventure and shit. We don't have adventure. Now we just have like weird wars and woke social movements. We got to like explore space or something. We need to build a space empire and stop fucking around down here. There's aliens out there. We could be touching their hair.
One of our tribe was killed by the goblins who first came to Whitianga. This man was a noted thief and took a dogskin mat to sell to the goblins. There were 5 of them at the stern of the canoe and 4 in the bow, and this thief was with those in the stern. When they got alongside of the ship, the goblin who collected shells, flowers, tree blossoms, and stones was looking over the side. He held up the end of a garment which he would give in exchange for the dogskin mat belonging to this noted thief. So the thief waved with his hand to the goblin to let some of it down into the canoe, which the goblin did. And as the goblin let some of it down into the canoe, the thief kept pulling it towards him. When the thief had got a long length of the goblin's garment before him, and beckoned with his hand to the man to give the dogskin mat up to him. But the thief did not utter a word, and began to fold up the dogskin mat with the goblin's garment into one bundle, and told his companions to paddle to the shore. The goblin went down into the hold of...
Damn, bro. First they call you goblins, then they try to rob you, man. Fucking brown people, I swear. We travel all around the world. I just want to be friends and do some fair trade. And this nigga try to steal my mat. I can't get no dog skin. He try to steal my dog skin. What the fuck is up with this nigga?
These blacks.
Of the ship, but soon came up with a walking stick in his hand and pointed with it at the canoe which was paddling away. Thunder pealed and lightning flashed, but those in the canoe paddled on. When they landed, 8 rose to leave the canoe, but the thief sat still with his dogskin mat and the garment of the goblin under his feet. His companions called to him, but he did not answer. One of them went and shook him, and the thief fell back into the hold of the canoe, and blood was seen on his clothing and a hole in his back. He was
the first nigga in South Pacific history to fuck around and find out. That is also the burden of empire, all right? Because we have the guns and we have the technology and we have the armies and the system and the training and the boats and the military and all. We have all the shit. Fuck around and find out. We have to spread the wisdom of fuck around and find out to all the 4 corners of the globe. And then we can have peace at home, all right? We have to fuck around and find out over there so we don't fuck around and find out over here, all right? That's how it works. George Bush actually didn't have a terrible philosophy. He was just using it on some bullshit. Like the whole thing was bullshit, but the concept of, they got to fuck around and find out over there so we don't fuck around and find out over here. I actually do approve of that on a strategic general level, right? But George Bush was on some bullshit.
Carried to the settlement, and a meeting of the people was called to consult on the matter, at which his companions told the tale of the theft of the goblin's garment, and the people said, he was the cause of his own death, and it will not be right to avenge him. All the payment he will obtain for his death will be the goblin's garment which he has stolen. which shall be left to bind around his body, where it is laid. His body was taken and put into one of the ancient cave burial places. Not any evil came from this death.
Hold on. Wait. All right. We kind of at the end of this video, but is that the OG George Floyd? And they took it like a G, though. Shout out to them. They ain't try to eat nobody or nothing. They took it like a G. But was that the OG George Floyd?
Payment he will obtain for his death will be the goblin's garment which he has stolen, which shall...
He got killed trying to steal some shit. George Floyd got killed trying to pass a fake 20, which is the equivalent of theft. Was that the OG George Floyd? See, they wasn't woke back then. They were cannibals, but they wasn't woke. Right? They was like, hey, man, fuck that nigga, man. What else y'all got on that boat, bro? I'm trying to see what else y'all got on that boat. We ain't really like that nigga George like that anyway. That nigga was a crackhead. That nigga was stealing from us and shit. We good without that nigga, man. They really did say, fuck that nigga. That's crazy. That is so fucking crazy. They really said, hey, man, look, he wasn't shit no way, all right? Like, you ain't had to kill him or nothing, but fuck that nigga, though. Like, I wish you ain't kill him, but fuck him. He dead now. And don't nobody want to fight for him, so, fuck him. Ain't nobody trying to ride for that nigga, man. Yo, that is wild, bro. That is wild. They like, yo, what else you got on that boat? We gonna call that a closed deal. Like, he stole from you, but you murdered the nigga, so we gonna call it a perfect circle. We gonna close that deal up. So what else you got on that boat, though? Bro, that's real shit. That's real shit. The first George Floyd, they was like, look, man, fuck that nigga. This is what happens when you not woke. You could be making deals. You could move on. You can let niggas get their just dessert and not even care about the shit. This is what woke does to you. And remember, they're cannibals, but they're not woke. They probably was going to eat that nigga eventually anyway. That's really what that was. That's exactly what that was. They was all like, they probably had a vote a couple days ago, like, you are the weakest link. You've been voted off the island type shit. But they don't give you a boat. They just throw you in a pot. And then it just so happened the day after they voted, the white man showed up on a boat. It was like Apocalypto. Right at a clutch moment, the white man showed up on a boat. They like, damn, we ain't going to eat this nigga now. And white folk, they going to think this shit weird. We going to chill on eating people in front of company. And then he went and got himself killed. That actually is perfect. That's like a fucking... That's like a movie. That's a great tale for a Hollywood story. South Pacific Apocalypto.
Shall be left to bind around his body, where it is laid. His body was taken and put into one of the ancient cave burial places. Not any evil came from this death, and we again went to barter with the goblins of that ship, and the goblins came again and again on shore. Nor was there one evil word spoken, or any act of transgression on our...
See, look, the gods loved it. They was like, hey, man, that nigga had to go. Even the gods was okay. Yo, can you imagine? Even the cannibal gods didn't fuck with that nigga. It didn't rain. It didn't storm. It was beautiful weather. Everybody was having a good time. The girls was giving up pussy left and right. It was good times everywhere. Yo, everybody was cool after that shit. Yo, imagine being the most hated nigga on Cannibal Island, bro. That's crazy. That's wild. Like, everybody on Cannibal Island was like, hey, man, fuck him. And then even the gods was like, hey, man, fuck him. That's wild. He really was a piece of shit nigga. He was, see, this is why racism is a thing. Because as soon as the white man travel around the world, they meet brown cannibals and ain't shit niggas and shit. God damn. Imagine what the white folk was thinking. Fucking cannibals be stealing and shit. Then they went back to Europe, like, yeah, I can confirm All the brown people, they steal and they eat people. Yeah. Yeah. That shit crazy. That's crazy, bro. History is some wild shit. History is a fucking foreign country. History is an alien planet. He died doing what he loved. Yeah. A lot of these ideas that we think are new are actually very old. There are no new ideas, only new memes. That's apparently how it is. The memes are new, but the ideas remain the same. Anyway, I thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate every one of y'all for following this show and all this madness and hanging out through our little odd dance through history. Wasn't that fun, though? We had fun with cannibals tonight. Not everybody can say that on their live streams. We have fun with cannibals because I'm a man of culture and refinement. You guys take care. I'll catch y'all later, man.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.